So in our episode last week, we looked at the idea of not comparing ourselves with other people and how comparing ourselves is a major hindrance to you and I growing, how it brings in guilt and the feeling of inadequacy. And so we want to talk today on our episode of this: discover what you were created for and flourish in it. You see, one way for us to remove the comparison issues is to do this. One is to discover who you are. That's your identity. Second, to discover what you were made for. That is your purpose. And then to plant yourself there and flourish in it. That's living out your identity and your purpose. Now, I used to do landscaping and lawn care for about 8 years of my life, and I love it. I love getting dirty. I love the smell of grass. I love flowers, love planting stuff, all of that. But there are certain plants that will thrive in certain soils. There are certain plants that will thrive in certain conditions. But on the flip side of that, if you plant a plant or a shrub in an area, a type of soil, or an area that it's not made for, then guess what happens? Many times that plant will die, or it would just barely survive. And so many times people wonder, as they're planting stuff in their yard and so forth, why isn't this doing well? Or what's wrong with this? Why do I keep killing stuff? And many times it's not, you can't just put anything anywhere. Certain stuff has to have a certain amount of sun, certain type of soil quality. Hydrangeas are beautiful plants. They have beautiful cone-shaped flowers or big ball flowers. Maybe you've seen them. But the colors can be a kind of blue, a purple, a pink. Well, that color is changed based on the pH level of the soil. So all that makes a difference in the color is the soil. So where things are planted is very, very important about how it will be. You see, one plant can be planted in sandy soil and it will thrive. It'll produce beautiful flowers and beautiful fruit. You can plant another plant in that same sandy soil and it will struggle just to stay alive because the sandy soil is just too dry for it. It needs more moisture. It needs a different type of soil. And we are much the same as these plants. Each of us grows better in certain conditions. Each of us were created, you see, with specific talents, and those talents will produce specific fruit. You see, we're uniquely created for a unique purpose. You were uniquely created for a unique purpose. And this is why you cannot accurately measure yourself against another person. We talked about that last week, and the danger that is. Other people are not an accurate measuring stick for us to compare ourselves with. So in discovering what you were created for, first we need to understand this, and that is you are a child of God. That's your identity. Remember, discover who you are, your identity. And do you understand that we receive our identity, we do not achieve our identity? And so many times we have it backwards. We go through life trying to achieve who you and I are. We go to work and maybe the degree we pursue or the talents we have or the sports that we're a part of, we try to allow that, or we try to achieve who we are through those avenues. But that's not it at all. That may be a part of who you and I are, but that is not who you and I are. And that's why we work so hard to achieve that identity. But you and I do not achieve it, we receive it. You and I receive our identity from our Creator. You see, you are created in God's image. That is who you are. You bear the marks of your Creator because you're made in His image, meaning you are an emotional being. You have the ability to be happy, to be sad. You have the ability to love because you were created in your Creator's image. You have the ability to forgive. You have the ability to reason, to think, to understand. All of that. Why? Because you bear the marks of your Creator. And if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you go a step further. You have the image that is marred because of sin. Though it's still there, it's distorted, just like if you were to look into a broken mirror. But as a believer in Jesus Christ, the mirror is repaired, and you and I are a child of God. That is who you are as a person. That is your identity. And can I say this? Whoever you are, wherever you at, whatever you look like, whatever gifts and talents you possess, you are who you are. You are exactly who God created you to be. And you don't need to be like anyone else. I do not need to be like anyone else. You were created to stand out. to be different than everyone else. And that is a positive attribute and a positive aspect of who you are. So within that identity of who we are, we're a child of God. You also, secondly, possess certain special talents and gifts. And this begins to relate to our purpose in life. You see, these are unique to you. Now, we may share similar talents and gifts with other people, but the talents and gifts and whatever God has equipped you with are unique and special to you. You are not supposed to have other people's talents, and that will help us to get rid of the guilt. Because we see other people many times doing certain things, maybe serving in the church, or they have this ability, or maybe in the workplace, and they have this ability to do maybe great in customer service. You have the ability to do great with numbers. You have the ability great to teach people and to really express and to communicate very clearly. But I struggle to, or we begin to compare. Well, it's because they have certain gifts to use and you have certain gifts to use. And if you don't have their gifts, don't feel like you have to have their gifts or be envious of those gifts. Take the gifts that you have and perfect those gifts, because that's who God created you to be, and that's where He wants your purpose to come through. So other people are not supposed to have your gifts either. So stop comparing ourselves with other people, right? That's what God's trying to tell us. And I think this is where Christians struggle many times. We feel someone else is doing a better job serving Christ because of the talents they have. Maybe you see somebody who is a teacher, or you see the preacher who is up front and very visual, and you just think, I just don't have those talents. They're pleasing God better, or they're serving God in a better way, but that's not it at all. Maybe you think they're so engaging, they're always able to communicate the gospel so clearly, or they do so well with kids. Look at them, and I can't relate to those kids. Or college students, as we deal with. People say, man, I couldn't do that with college students, and I think I couldn't do that with young kids anymore, because God has gifted us differently, and that's okay. And sometimes we get caught in this trap of comparison, and it breeds that guilt, and it hinders our growth, because we begin to think, I wish I could be like, and you name the person. How many people in your church or your workplace that you wish you could be like them? Whether it's because of how they interact, or because of their marriage, or because of maybe the possessions they have in life, or the position, or the opportunity, or whatever it is. You see, you were not created with the same gifts as the other people. And that's good. It's not bad. And that's on purpose, because that's how God created you. God is not expecting you to be just like that person. You can't. So stop trying. Be who? Be you, right? Be exactly who God created you to be. Because this is who God made you to be, and that brings us thirdly to use your gifts where God has placed you. This idea of discover what you were created for and flourish. You see, this is what you're created for. You're created, you have your identity from God. You are a child of God. You are made in His image. This is who you are. And then He gifts you with special talents and gifts and circumstances and opportunities. And He wants you to utilize those to fulfill your purpose on this earth, to build His kingdom, to get the truth out, to get the gospel out, to love people, to interact with people, to be an influence and so forth. You see, you and I are just like the plants we talked about. If you are planted in the wrong soil, guess what? You're going to struggle to flourish. And many times you and I try to plant ourselves with other people's gifts. We try to put ourselves in other people's situations by comparing ourselves. And you and I are not going to thrive. We're not going to flourish, because ultimately we'll be in the wrong soil. We'll be in the wrong sunlight, or whatever the case is. You see, but if we'll recognize our gifts as God reveals them to you, however they are, and quit asking and desiring other people's gifts. Recognize the gifts that you and I have. Cultivate those. Put those in good soil. Water them. Give them a little fertilizer. Try to equip ourselves as best we can. Then you and I will flourish in life. We'll flourish in our identity. We'll flourish in our purpose. And so we will quit trying to live out another person's purpose. So don't try to mimic someone else's gift or force a gift that you do not possess. Discover what your gift is and then flourish in it, and quit worrying about what the other person's gifts are, even if they are more visible, even if they do seem to you to be more appealing, to be more attractive, or to be what you would consider a better gift. You see, God has not made better gifts. God does not have a hierarchy of talents and gifts that He gives people. He gives people unique gifts. He equips them uniquely so that He can have a vast array of assortment of people and gifts to do the overall accomplishment of what must be done. Just like that at a company. You have to have every aspect. Just like on your foot, the pinky toe is very important, just the same as your big toe. They're all equally important. One is not less, one is greater. You have to have every person in that company in order for the company to function, and everybody needs to be keyed into their position and their gifts for the company to flourish. And that's the same idea in the Christian life. And so quit trying to mimic or force somebody else's gift into your life. Don't think that you have to have it, because that comparison begins to kill us and hinders our growth. You see, you are gifted, and God has placed you in specific places for a reason. Embrace it. Love it. Remember, you are created by your Creator. You are created in His image. That's who you are. He created you with certain gifts and talents and placed you in certain situations that only you will be placed in. That is your purpose. And so discover those and begin to utilize those so that you can begin to flourish tremendously in life. So here's the questions you need to answer. I need to answer. What are your talents? What are my talents? Where has God uniquely placed you? What opportunities has God uniquely given to you? And then how are you, or how am I using those gifts and those places where God has placed you and I uniquely for His glory? How are we utilizing those to flourish, to grow, and settle into each of these questions as we answer them and realize God is pleased in who you are. God is pleased with what you are doing. So as you discover your gifts and you use those gifts to flourish, do so right where God has placed you. Don't look for another place. Don't wish you were somewhere else. Don't wish you were someone else. But discover your gifts and plant yourself there and flourish right where God has you.